Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much, Rob. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for all being here. Deb, thank you for coming, well, always being here, but all the little extra duties that are created as a result of wafer training. So let's begin this meeting as we do with every meeting by offering any guest or audience comments. Is there anything anyone in the audience would like to question or ask? We have some guests from the fire department, but okay, we'll save you for later. Got it. Moving along on the agenda, we have the approval of the minutes. We received copies of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, did we approve the agenda? Are we supposed to approve the agenda before we get into the discussion?
I think we don't have to approve the agenda because it's already published unless we change it.
Could I suggest a change?
Yes.
The two folks that are here, can we move the grant discussion up early in the meeting, or you want to save it till later?
We can, after we can move it up. Why don't we do that? That sounds like good. You have a motion to change the agenda to.
I move that we change the agenda to move item 11, new business, up to after approval of minutes.
Sounds good to me.
Second.
Do you have a second? Yep. Great. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have amended the agenda. Thank you. So then, with that said, I appreciate you making that observation. Let's talk about the regular minutes. Everyone has a copy. Did you get a chance to review them? I hope. If there are no changes or corrections, may I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
Gelston, so moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Take it off the. Oh, sorry.
This is way too.
Yeah.
That might make it easier for you. Move mine over. All right. Now let's go to item 11, new business. So the first one was grant acceptance of the 2020 DUI enforcement grant.
This is pretty much every year the same thing.
Yes, sir.
So I'd make a motion to accept the fiscal year 2020 Comprehensive DUI Enforcement Program Grant for the resident state trooper in the amount of $9,745.04, and to request that the Board of Selectmen schedule a town meeting for approval.
Do I have a second?
Gelston seconds.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item is the 2020 Historic Documents Preservation Grant. Deb, do you have any color that you want to add to this?
We've already discussed it. This was, we've just now been accepted. There's no match to it, and I'm using this year's funds in coordination with the library. They had some documentation, older books that they wanted to conserve and preserve. And
Okay.
you might recall the discussion. It was, I think, September.
Very good.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. In this case, we're the contractors for this grant? Is that a different thing? East Haddam is the contractor for this?
Well, we don't know because we're not doing the work. We're sending it out to professionals who are going to properly restore, deassify, and all that other kind of stuff, the records, to preserve them for safekeeping. I guess if by meaning contractor, I'm the one that's going to oversee it and work directly with the vendor. Yes.
And it's going to be done by June?
Mm-hmm. Has to be done by June for the
Right.
grant fund.
Thank you.
I think they needed 8 weeks to do the work.
Okay.
Any other questions? May I have a motion?
I move to accept a grant contingent upon acceptance by the Board of Selectmen from the State of Connecticut State Library in the amount of $5,500 for historic document preservation. That is Historic Document Preservation Fund, account number 26041-43000, and to request that the Board of Selectmen schedule a town meeting for approval.
Second. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay, great. The next item is, including our guests, fire department is looking to apply for assistance to firefighters and get 8 AEDs and 2 chest compression devices. There's a match in the range of $2,452 to $4,905, or 5 to 10%. They haven't specified where the match is coming from, and we may want to have a dialogue around that. Before we go into doing the discussion, I'm going to invite our guests, if you want to speak on this matter at all or give us some more
Sure.
information, I'd appreciate
So
it.
this is along with the same program as the ladder truck grant we're attempting to get. They a few years back came out with what they call a micro grant, and that would be what this falls under. It's just another opportunity for funding from FEMA to fire departments and emergency services organizations. And one of the things that we've realized over time is we don't have enough modern automatic external defibrillators. We currently, within the fire department owned by the town, have 3 on our medical first response vehicles. However, those vehicles tend to not get out when there's a fire, and the largest loss of life to firefighters is by cardiac events. So the big trucks, the engines, and the tankers that go to the fires don't carry these devices currently. We looked at a plan of possibly at the end of the year purchasing one every year until we got enough. However, by the end of that, we would be starting over again because they have about a 10-year life expectancy. The chest compression devices is a huge asset to the community. They're a bona fide piece of equipment that just has been proven time and time again to increase the chances of survivability in sudden cardiac arrest. I've a previous employer, I used them, and they're phenomenal. It's a large sum of money to purchase them out of pocket, and that's why we'd like to attempt it with this grant.
Okay, so they're asking permission to get approved for the grant. The cost to the town, as we see on these numbers, is really minimal relative to that. So are there any questions of the gentleman before we look at this motion?
Just real quick, with the 5% match, which with all the AFG grants, it's 5% to the town is the minimum. We've obviously with the ladder truck and then with this gone the 10% route just because it does make us look better for the funding. But at the $2,500 for the 5%, that's approximately the cost of 2 of the AEDs. The AEDs are roughly $1,100 to $1,300 depending on the manufacturer.
Super. Question?
Yeah, the question is 5 or 10%. When is that decision made, whether it's 5 or 10%? Is that something that we make, or the Board of Selectmen makes, or we do it together?
So
What's the timing of that?
The minimum, when we apply for the grant, we have to put in what we're gonna do. The minimum is 5. We'd like to do 10.
And so if we do the 10 and we're awarded the grant, then you have to come back with us and we have to accept the grant.
Correct.
So I think the answer to your question is the range, and correct me if I'm wrong, the range that we put on the grant application will make it look more favorable. It's like when you're putting a deposit on a home, the bigger the deposit, maybe the
More
more
serious
likely
you
you're
are.
gonna to get it.
But my question is, I'm confused. On the application, you put 5 to 10, you put 10, or you put 5?
We have to put one.
They're
We
gonna
have to
put one
or
number,
the
they're gonna
other.
put 10%
Yeah.
if we allow for that.
Because it increases the chance of getting the grant.
Correct.
Because there's a chance we won't get the grant,
There's always a chance we won't get it.
but usually we get it.
We have not applied for an assistance to firefighters grant since 2006. We did get it at that time, but no one has applied for one since. So that's why we're going full bore and applying for them all this year.
Okay, thank
Any
you,
other questions?
thank you.
Questions, please?
No questions.
Joe, any questions?
No, I'm comfortable, at some point, assuming we get the grant.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to figure out where the $4,900 comes from. And I guess my first question is, do you folks have that money laying around in quarters in the couch or something?
I wish we had a couch that big. Worst case scenario, we could probably do the 5 to 10 out of our equipment replacement fund within our budget, but that would take some looking into at that time.
Okay. I guess the other, assuming that's too big a reach for them, it's gonna tie their hands in ways that none of us would necessarily like. When the time comes, I assume that the other approach would be to take the 4,900 from the Board of Finance contingency,
That's correct.
and I would be comfortable with either.
Okay.
To follow Harvey's question, could we go halfway? You have, if it's 10%, you cough up 5%, we cough up 5%. Does that sound feasible?
At this point in time, this discussion really doesn't make any difference because we haven't been awarded it. When it comes in,
Yeah,
we
well,
can tell them whichever way we want to do it.
Okay.
Do you
Okay.
see where I'm going? It's like, we don't have the money yet, so we don't have to discuss it. We could do it
got
that way.
I got it.
You did just say you would be comfortable with that, so.
But that can be worked out at the time.
At the
that
time
we
of
know we
award.
actually are gonna cross this bridge.
Correct.
Very good.
Okay, with no further question, would someone like to make a motion to authorize the fire department to apply for the Assistance to Firefighters Micro Grant in the amount of $49,056.56 with a 10% town match for the purpose of acquiring 8 AEDs and 2 chest compression devices?
So moved.
Would someone like to second that?
Gelston seconds.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay. Next item also includes firehouse. And this one's a little bit more pertinent to discussion as it involves some immediate action. And so, why don't do you want to give us some highlight on this first, or do you want me to go through what, everybody's had a chance to read through this and they have an understanding? All right, why don't you give us a quick summary of what's going on here, and then I'll let the board go through and ask some questions, please.
So basically, we noticed some issues a year or so ago, and we realized that we needed some more security within our buildings. We do have quite a large asset pool of very expensive equipment, and between some noticed issues a few years back with time card issues, some equipment being not necessarily tampered with, but not exactly treated appropriately, we realized we had a need for cameras. It was placed in the capital improvement projects for $6,000. Mr. Turner came back to us with a quote per firehouse of being $16,000 per station. At this point, our plan that was suggested by the selectmen at our commissioners meeting was to move forward with requesting the additional $10,000 on top of our current capital funds for this project for this year, and then budgeting next year for the $16,000 in capital for the second station.
Now, you had money budgeted already, and I guess the question that comes to mind for me is, what changed, what additional features did we decide to include or enhancements that were necessary?
Originally, we were looking at an internal camera system that would have fallen within that range. The town's preference, Mr. Turner and discussions with the first selectman, everybody's pretty much in agreement that the preference would be to be on the town's current system, so it's monitorable here, also at the firehouse remotely. But the biggest advantage is the backups. With an internal system, it would have to be downloaded onto somewhere that's not maintained.
So incorporating it into the town security
It
system
would be within the same
requires
system.
more money, but then we get a full range of features. Am I correct by saying that?
Correct,
Ralph?
you have a much more secure system, it can't be tampered with, you can,
And it's monitored here.
it's monitored here, but it also could be monitored at the firehouse.
But I mean, it's kind of, we
But
have
it would
much
be
more
in the
control.
secure storage here, so to speak. And it's the same system that's utilized for this complex here, for the schools. It's, we talked to the gentleman that had given the assessment or what he thought would be with a very simple system, but after looking and listening to the discussion, it seemed that it was a little overly simplistic and potentially could be manipulated, for want of a better word. And we just decided that it would be much better to have it at a single location incorporating all the existing types of security that our system has, so.
Got it. I'm clear on this now. I'm gonna go through the group. Do you have any additional questions, Tom?
Well, I see option one, option two
So
here. That's
before
fine. And
we
get there-
do that,
Okay.
why don't we talk about the options a little bit? So I just want to provide the color to what's happening. We already budgeted $6,000. In order for them to move this forward, we either provide that through our Board of Finance contingency fund, which has a remaining balance of $81,000, or we're gonna have to ask for a special appropriation at a town meeting. To authorize special appropriation amount of 10th for the purpose.
Right. So the cost is excuse me, my question is, the cost is $16,374, but you have $6,000 already you can expend towards that. This is just for one firehouse number one.
Correct, that's for Company One on Town Street, and the plan is to include the addition of the system for the next fiscal year on our capital plan, for the 16 and change, for after July 1.
So the fire department, in essence, for their budget, will be asking for, assuming they were gonna ask for the 6, they're gonna be asking for the additional 10 on top of that in the 2021 budget.
Right. Now the 9,000 that was gonna go to the gate, it's not gonna go to the gate, so that can come back to our contingency fund.
Potentially.
Or you got used for.
I don't know how that works for you folks, but
Also, that money, that did not happen?
has not happened. When I was elected, I checked on it, and though the purchase order was issued in July, it had not been ordered when I spoke to Miss Lunt sometime in November, late November, it still had not been ordered at that point. And I believe there's other options we can use there which will be more efficient and not eliminate the need for that gate, so I told her to put a hold on it, so it has not been ordered, and right now, I do not plan on having it ordered.
Okay.
Fair
I'm glad
enough.
you brought that up, I was unaware of that.
So, we're, half the year is over, we got half the year to go. I'm a little nervous about sucking up our contingency right now, unless we really have to. But if that $9,000 can be used toward the town, we might as well do it. And
If it
minimize
goes,
the impact.
if it's canceled, then that's where it came from, because that was, I'm not,
I believe that's where it came from, right?
Yeah.
okay, then yes, it would be
Oh,
available.
it did come from our contingencies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to make sure I understand what you just said, is we've already allocated 9,000 from our contingency that we know will not be spent. And so in our minds, we're okay with allocating 10,374 from our contingency because it represents a wash.
That's right,
Plus or
you got
minus.
it. That's exactly where I was going.
Questions, Bruce?
Logical.
All set?
So,
Yep, you're, no questions?
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank
Harvey.
you.
I'm good on the funding. I am kind of curious. These security cameras are gonna cover the external perimeter of the building and internal?
That is correct.
Okay, both. Okay. That's my only question.
I believe it was 8 cameras total. I want to say there was 2 outside and 6 inside.
Right, but you get both.
You know what, may I ask a question after all?
Of course.
I'm sorry, this is kind of a moot point, I'm just curious. I know surveillance in any place of work, video, audio, whatever, is pretty standard in 2020. Do you anticipate any pushback or any reason you wouldn't be able to get these installed? Any issues, grievances from union members, anything like that?
I don't see it from that end. I mean,
we're
not putting them in an area that there's going to be an expectation
All
of
public.
privacy.
Well, of
That's the
course.
question, yeah.
Of course.
It is, even though they're not there, it is already posted in the firehouse that
We could
recording
use that,
devices are potentially there.
That's what I thought. Everything was pretty standard.
That's the beware of the dog that doesn't exist. Or put it in the ADT side of your front yard.
That's pretty cheap, though.
Just to tag on, I mean, to the captain's point, we've noticed a lot of, not just within the last couple of years, and I think we're behind the times in protecting our assets. I think our department has, at all the departments in town, the most, line items that are in a high amount. I mean, millions of dollars are under our roof. And to have these cameras will definitely be valuable. We've noticed, doors being broken that we can't prove who did it. Was it the town crew? Was it one of our own members? Was it, just as examples? And we have no idea. We come in the middle of the night and the door's pushed in, and that's happened multiple times. Things go missing. Captain's point too, time theft issues. There's all kinds of things, and this will definitely alleviate some of those problems. It'll be very clear as to what's kind of going on.
We're probably ready to move along, but given the work that I've done on the capital committee, I have to ask you this next question, because it came up in many of our conversations. Are there any recurring expenses that would change from the one system to the other? In other words, ongoing maintenance fees or monitoring fees or anything ongoing that would be different between the two proposals, what you had and what we're talking about?
I think that would probably be a better question for Ron Turner. I don't know what the operating costs of the town system is. I would assume there's some storage fees and such. The other system, potentially would have maintenance fees and storage fees associated as well, but I don't know that those were ever actually included any. You had more of a conversation, Rob, with.
Yeah, I don't believe the other vendor, SHS, indicated whatever ancillary cost there would be. With this system, I don't know if there will be any significant costs. You have additional equipment, of course, and there's always a chance that something will malfunction. But the storage and the computer, part of it is already there, and there's storage capacity with our current system to handle this. So, I will say there'll probably be some, but I can't quantify it.
Okay. Everybody heard what they need to hear?
Yes.
So, would someone like to read option 1 motion, please? I'll read it. Would someone like to make a motion to transfer $10,374 from the Board of Finance Contingency Fund, my number's 10559010-58910, to the Capital Projects Fund 33250013-58926-C as in Charlie 0188, for the purpose of installing a video access system to the firehouse number 1.
So moved.
Would someone like to second that?
Second?
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, you guys are welcome to stay as long as you like, or you can leave. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time today.
Good night.
There you go.
Okay. So, correspondence. I have no correspondence as we move through our agenda. Chairman's report. Let's go through the subcommittees. I know we've had a couple of active meetings on the communication subcommittee. Would one of you gentlemen like to brief us?
Okay, I guess I will. Yes, please. Yeah. We had a pretty good meeting. We're working on, next article we're working on is for the finances of the transfer station. That is the current finances. So the taxpayers and residents of the town are fairly grounded in what the cost of operating our transfer station is today. And hopefully help them recognize that the improvements are needed. and probably some expenditures and improvements to make it happen. But we want to thoroughly ground the residents of town, including the taxpayers, of course, with a clear story on the costs of the operation and infrastructure of the transfer station.
Okay. So in that whole discussion, I know, Rob, you were involved in that meeting too. My thinking on this is move forward on it. Additionally, I'd like to know two questions as part of your article that I think taxpayers ought to know. Where do we anticipate any kind of cost savings based on things you intend to do? And where do we anticipate cost increases based on factors that are presenting themselves? As an example, years ago, we made money on recyclables and now we have to pay for them. So some of that input would be part of that article. As
I think that was already discussed, and that would be part of the article, how it's gone from, we made $5 per ton on the recyclables, and now it costs us $30 per ton, and that's basically a $35 per ton increase. Where we're gonna save the money is a little bit more of a tough nut to crack, because the biggest savings would be is if the private contractors left, and we're no longer dumping there. But right now, our ordinance permits them to dump there for $250 per year. They're licensed for that per year. So, but our ordinance also allows them to do that. So we'd have to change the ordinance to address that. And but obviously you have to be cooperation amongst everyone involved. Primarily there are two local contractors. Waste management also picks up in town and historically dumped up there, but stopped several years ago because their trucks were too big. And I've been told that there was a question whether everything was being generated in town, but basically our hopper could not handle it. So in any event, they no longer dump up there. They go to either Willimantic or down to Essex. So
I guess my question
yep.
is, those are items. Are you going to be the author of this article? Who's going to help
I'm going to
draft
be the
it?
initial author.
All right, and you're going to collaborate with
Yes.
your committee and with the
Yes.
First Selectman's
I'm-
office
I'm-
and the finance.
I've been asked by the subcommittee to write a draft by next Wednesday. We'll have another meeting next Wednesday night. We'll review our draft. If we like it, it'll go to the First Selectman and
A
yourself.
collaborative effort is great. Those are the two items I'd like.
Yep.
Feel free to add that input.
Okay.
We can go forward with that. That's great. Anything else on communication? Yes.
I have one, I don't know whether it's a suggestion or just a random thought. The transfer station issue has been floating around for a while. My recollection is that there've been one or two articles in the East Haddam News trying to alert people with diagrams and the whole 9 yards. It would make, I think, it would help people if in some diplomatic way it could be explained why this thing's been under consideration for a long time. We thought we had some solutions, but we didn't really have them, and now we're tackling it. I don't know what the right words are, but somebody is sure to ask, what the hell? I thought this was solved.
Yeah, we could put that in there.
And I
Well,
don't
I mean,
have the
truthfully,
words.
that's great guidance, because the only thing that's changed is our First Selectman, right?
That's about it.
So
That's
you may
right.
want to provide you may want to also add some rationale for your
Absolutely.
approach.
Absolutely.
And I think,
And I think-
taking into consideration
asked.
what was published and said that we were going to do before.
Okay.
Good. Anything else from the communications?
Just along those lines, because it's such a long-running process and been in the works for so long, we feel it's important to get it out, keep it out there, so when when it's time to vote for the budget again, it's not, what the heck? Exactly.
Here we go again. Now, I think the clearer you make a picture, the human brain always wants to fill a vacuum. There's a vacuum of information, they'll fill it themselves. So the clearer picture we make of, to your point though, the clearer picture we make of the transfer station, the current situation, I think the less questions we're going to have, and then we offer up things like the low-hanging fruit is what is one of the questions that Bill's asking about really, and people in town asking about that already as well. So our job is to make a clear story, a clear picture, and there have been some hiccups, but they'll see that this is a complicated problem really, and because a lot of pieces to this. I'll give you one example, as Rob explained at our meeting last week, the RAM we got for a low price, $300 a month or something, I forgot what it was, a real low number. It's really too weak, so it can't pack as much as the old RAM can. So guess what? We have to truck more times. The truck isn't as full, and that's an extra cost built in. Yeah, we thought we were saving money. I think I got the feeling we're losing money on the deal now.
Well,
But that's one of the things.
right, I'm just sort of saying what I think.
No, you're right.
Guys,
No, other
figure
people
out
thinking
which-
the same thing.
Figure out which, here.
So we're gonna be writing government. That's why we're so passionate about writing an article.
And I propose also that you involve Beth, right? Because her input's valuable, and it seems like, I just wanna make sure we're all on the same sheet. You know, I'm a little surprised today to know that this gate that we're told is a real great savings mechanism isn't really appropriate. So I don't wanna be led down that path where I'm being directed that something that helps save our town. I'm all in favor of spending some money if I could save us some money, and then find out later that, well, that really wasn't gonna happen. So that kind of stuff is a little disheartening for me.
Well, the good news about the gate is it wasn't ordered, and Rob has a different view, a different idea of how to implement change. So it's a good thing that we
It's
didn't
great, it's very good. I'm
order it, because,
totally-
you know, we went on one person's advice and sounded good, but maybe there's a better idea, so.
Totally agree, I totally agree. I just I was thinking that when it's presented to us for a financial thing, we okay the expenditure. I'd like it to have been vetted out before it kind of gets to us, so we don't have to ask. That's really my thought.
All the more reason why we need to get this up to the forefront, so that come
Yeah.
budget time,
So it comes clear, all these rocks will show up. Start draining the pond, all the rocks will show up.
so I think we're fortunate that what's happened so far.
Very good.
I do have one question though, about our process. As Bill explained, people were involved, they decided to go do this, and a purchase order was written out but never sent. What happened? Why did, I mean, $9,000 sat there doing nothing for all this time?
From
Which is
July-
fortunate.
End of July till almost the end of November when I checked on it.
We should figure out why that happens, so it doesn't happen again, we really vote on something. But, so that's all I have to say.
Point.
Okay, let's see, anything else on communications?
Say, on this general thing, and I don't know if this falls into communication, but I don't know if you want to mention the potential for the steep grant.
Oh, yeah, the windfall, okay, we can talk about that.
It's up to Bill. I mean, I can bring it up later in.
I'd like you to bring it up under yours,
Okay.
please. I do want to hear about it, just we'll bring it up under our
Yep.
first selectmen's report. Anything else from communication subcommittee? We know we've got the regular financial stuff is gonna get published soon, so a lot of good work. Guys, I really appreciate all the efforts that you've done. If there's no more there, let's switch to the second item there, and that's the financial needs roundtable. Harvey, would you provide a briefing of how that went?
I'll do my best. The group that used to be called the Financial Needs Roundtable, now called the Capital Improvements Committee or some such, met, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. The membership had changed a little bit due to the election, so we went over the process that we have proposed again. It seemed to be well received. There were some suggestions for improvements. They were relatively modest improvements, but improvements nonetheless. And the Board of Education, the various town departments are in the process of filling out requests for the various capital items that they foresee needing, and filling out those requests also to update the status of things that were already in the capital improvement plan. We're told, Bill and I, in talking with Cindy, are told that people look at the form and they go, oh my God, and then they start to work with it and see that it's not as daunting as they thought, which is a good thing. And anecdotally, Cindy seems to believe that there are a lot of, that in sitting down with people, each department, the Board of Ed, and going through their needs, that there's a lot of stuff that they hadn't thought of in the past. And so we're gonna get a lot more requests than maybe we would have thought. That's, oh my God, now a lot of work and potentially a lot of things that we need to include in a capital plan. The good news part of that is that the process seems to be uncovering things that people hadn't identified a need for, or need to replace something, a need that was going to arise or whatever. And we now, if we're lucky, should have a lot more information about what we need overall, and not have stuff come to us in the middle of, to pick a month, August, with somebody saying, oh my God, this thing has to be replaced right now. What are you gonna do? So the process seems to be helping. We'll find out when we get through a cycle of it, but.
And to add some information to that, it's a good way, because now we're gonna start identify capital needs well in advance. I think the upfront on this is going to be, this year, maybe next year, these two budgets are gonna be a little bit overwhelming because of the number of inputs that happen, but we're gonna have better information and a better level of predictability going forward on what these projects are, to be delivered to that committee so that they can help the selectmen and the Board of Education decide which one's first. And again, we come back and we'll have to figure out how we pay for things, but that gives us some good guidance when we're looking at all of the options. I'll move on to the next item, financial policies, increasing revenue. So we finished the majority of our financial policies with the exception of strategy. And what we decided to do is to embrace that, and it really falls under the jurisdiction or the direction of the Selectman's office, but we're gonna approach it like we did with the capital plan, to kind of just get the ball rolling and to do the elements that apply mostly to the finance board, to deliver to the selectmen something that would be more inclusive of a strategy for our town. And we're just starting to work on that by reviewing we're reviewing the plan of conservation and development, we're reviewing other town strategies, and we should be moving more to come. Anything you want to add on that?
No, I think it's gonna be a bigger task than,
It's gonna take us forever.
a bigger task than, well, we'll knock that out by lunch.
Or during lunch.
That usually works even better.
Any questions of anybody on these topics at all?
I have a comment. I think all this is great, really fantastic. The good thing about a form and a process, if it entices people to think through, and that's what we needed, and it's doing it. So that's great.
Great.
Thank you very much
And I
for your
agree.
work.
I can't say enough about the work that the committees are doing in addition to the work you do here on the board. And I'm very grateful for all of the work that's going in, because it makes a big deal. Okay, without further ado, we'll move on our agenda to the first selectman's report. Rob, would you like to provide us any updates?
So one of the things in this, it's kind of a segue, and I don't know if Ms. Riccio has brought this up, but I have, early on in the process, I asked for an audit on personal property. So because of the issues, or maybe no issues, I hope there's no issues, but I suspect some people are not fully reporting their personal equipment and items that should be taxed. So, and some I know are, and there's some that may not be aware of what the rules are, but we've been looking at some options there to potentially increase our grand list, which is one thing that would help, obviously. And if Cindy, has Cindy brought this up at all?
She has.
Okay, then there's probably no.
She's brought it up to me, but you may
Okay. Oh, but
wanna, not to the board, no.
So one of the options is that there's one company out there, for example, first of all, when you do an audit and you find that there is a discrepancy, you can go back 3 years for taxes by statute. So could be substantial. The other part of one of the companies we're looking at is basically at no cost to the town, but they get a percentage of what they recover, so to speak. And that's a one-time cost, but from then on, the town will gain the additional money each future year, because obviously it's something that's been added to the grand list as personal equipment. Again, it's an unknown. We don't have lots and lots of businesses in town, but we have some businesses that may not be reflecting everything, or maybe they just don't understand what has to be reported. So there's a couple options we're looking at. I thought it was worthwhile to do it. It hasn't been done in a decade or two, or a long time. So that's just one thing that we're looking at. So on to other things. We touched on this a
Are we
minute
all clear
ago.
what's?
I have a question about this.
Yep.
You say personal property, this is for businesses or for residences, or both?
Well, primarily businesses, but it could be some residences. Say they have, I'm trying to think what would be something that,
Backhoe.
tobacco or something like that.
Or a lawnmower, riding,
There's
or a small tractor?
There's something that drops in there. I don't know what there's a lower level or something, but I'm not sure of all the variables. But yes, it could be.
Okay.
Well, man,
But you,
somebody's running a home occupation
Yeah,
lawn care business and has
Exactly.
4 of those big riding mowers
yeah,
that never got put on the tax roll.
at 12,000 apiece.
Right, or I've got a little running out of my bedroom excavating business and have a backhoe and a whatever and never said anything. Doesn't go on, the motor vehicles doesn't know anything about it,
Yep,
so it just slips through the cracks.
yep.
But as long as I'm running my mouth, I'll keep doing it. There's a perception, whether it's justified or not, there's a perception in, for example, the Economic Development Commission, that the town is ultra not business friendly. And so when we do this, it has to be, my suggestion, my thought, better yet, would be to position it very carefully, that my friend here pays all of her property taxes, and me, I'm sneaking by not reporting stuff, and that's just not fair. Or some
Right.
lines, something along those kind of lines. I don't know what the right way to do it
which is exactly how we were looking at it.
Right, I don't know exactly the right way, but
Now, I do want to add a little more color to this. We haven't reported the grand list yet, but preliminarily, I'm learning that it may be flat, if not a little bit reduced. The rationale is we just lost another, from what I learned, is another group is filing for 501c3 status at the Clark Crest Resort on
Camp Colmish.
Camp Comish, yeah. So so this might be, I think the intent is an idea to offset some of the
Potential.
grand list values that we're missing. And while I'm always in agreement with the approach you're taking, it is an ultra-sensitive thing too, given the timing of where we are.
Yeah, it is sensitive, but it's a fair thing to do. But I'll ask a question, how have other towns done this? Do you know? How do they go about?
Well, sometimes they have their own people that do it. I mean, larger cities, have generated millions. We're not gonna generate millions. But, they hire these organizations, these companies that do it, or they do it themselves.
So these guys,
There's all sorts of ways to do it. I mean, everything from, monitoring equipment in and out of buildings, and businesses and things like that, but that's why you hire the companies, because we don't have the person or the personnel to do that type of stuff.
so they go on the property, literally walk on the property and.
I don't know what all the rules are and regulations and laws
Gotta
are.
be careful.
I guess to this point, last year during the budget cycle, when did we do the rebate? When am I thinking of that? Was it last year or the year before? It all
Year
blends
before.
to me. We had taxpayers
Yeah.
presenting themselves here based on the way that the group approached them. And they were, I just want to remind you of the sensitivity of this too, and consider that. From a finance perspective, it makes sense that we collect the taxes that are due, but we want to make sure we really vetted out any companies that we're looking at.
Absolutely.
Any other comments?
No, that's exactly my concern.
Joe?
Nothing at the moment.
Any more on that? Move
Okay.
forward.
I mentioned the STEEP grant. So we were contacted by the state that we had never spent the money that was returned for the Harris property, and it was still on the books, and what do we want to do with it? And apparently there's $10 million approximately, or maybe more, of STEEP grants that, by other towns that have never been spent, and they're trying to clean up the books and want to know if we want to spend that money.
Stupid question.
So, interestingly enough, we had already put in a couple other steep grant requests several years back for improvements to the transfer station. And when we sent a quick note back saying, yeah, if that money's still available, we definitely could use it for, upgrades and everything to the transfer station. So, we're waiting a response back. But I just want to make you aware that it's out there and something might be forthcoming or it might not. But we were all quite surprised to, Cindy and everybody else that saw it, we were quite surprised to see this come down the pike.
Pleasantly, I'm sure.
Yes, like what?
How much money is it, Rob?
I want to say
400?
400,000.
Yeah, that was the big surprise.
Yeah, so I think it's a little under, but in that range, so. Yeah.
Well, get us a new Ram.
Well, there's another thing.
And a hopper too.
Put that gate back in.
And just as FYI, I was concerned about the odors and the smells and whatever else the staff might be inhaling up there at the transfer station, so I had an air test done on a relatively busy day, and it came back mostly clean. There's oil leaking and a bunch of other issues there, but nothing to worry about, which is reassuring, because I don't want to be subjecting our staff to something that they shouldn't be breathing. So on to other issues. Well, this could be a potential long-range issue, but Foxtown Road Bridge, as you probably know, there was a number of issues when it was under construction and delays and all sorts of problems there. The stone was put on, then they had to take it off and redo it again, and there may be suits and everything filed on that, much like was filed on one of the other bridges. I don't remember which one, where it was.
So it's the same area, though.
Well, yeah, it's the
What
same,
is it with those
same
bridges
river.
in southeastern part of
Yeah.
town?
So, just an FYI that there may be some back and forth, and we may end up in the middle of it somehow or other. The Johnsonville Bridge, the road is open there right now. Additional work needs to be done on it, but they were going to try and work through the winter, but it just became too onerous to try and heat the bridge. and the stones and the concrete and everything to make it work, and so they decided to wait till warm weather. Ackley Road, which is, we spent a lot of time and money on, is substantially complete. They expected to complete it last week, but our road superintendent was out with the flu all week, and so it looks like they might get it done this week. Right now, Public Works is working on other gravel roads as the weather allows, whether it's snow from the sky or frost in the ground. So, and the town Public Works crews are cleaning up a lot of the trees that were left as part of earlier cutting jobs, because they were just cut and dropped on either the side of the road, the boles of the trees. In some cases, they were dropped on private property, so that's being addressed. They started addressing that this last week. And of course, trees are still the biggest issue out there for us, and potentially the most expensive issue for the next year or two. I asked or ordered that we have another tree crew start working in town, and so we have one full-time tree crew working. I believe they're up on North Moodus right now, and we have another part-time crew working. The part-time crew was the crew that was in here before Islin, I think his name is.
Right, Charlie Easton.
So,
May I ask a question on that?
Yep.
When you say another crew, you mean
another company.
another company coming in to do that? And what about Eversource? What's going on with them?
So we are actually having a meeting with Eversource. We were supposed to meet on 16th this week, but that got postponed because of conflicts to the 24th. We're going to be getting an update and a schedule as to what they're going to be doing in town. They're still working on our state highways in town. I just put a request in for the query in regarding the 4 big ashes at the Riverview Cemetery, for example, that had been brought to our attention. So they said they're going to take care of those. So they're still working in town in various locations, but saw the trucks parked here for a while. Now they moved on. DOT had them doing some work too, so it's kind of like they're moving from place to place, trying to address what the most current concern is in whatever primary line that they're working on. So our crews, two crews we have working here right now, are working in some of the places where we can't do mechanized equipment. So when both crews are working, it's about $4,000 or $4,800 a day for the trucks and buckets and chippers and everything. We have been in contact with Distinctive Tree Care, who has large mechanized equipment. You may have seen them out on the major highways. They have a wheeled chipper that will take a 43-inch tree and chop it right up. There's virtually no one handling anything. It's all done with mechanized equipment. They can go up to 75 feet in the air, and we had them back a month and a half or so ago do a review of some of the primary roads in town. They surveyed Haywardville Road, Tater Hill and Clark Hill roads, Mott Lane, Landing Hill and Orchard Road, and then Boardman Road, which are basically feeder roads from various locations. One road that's not on here, which I found interesting, was Colchester Turnpike. But in any event, on those roads they found about 800 trees that needed to be dead trees or dead or dying trees. 30 to 40% of those trees were on the utility side, and one of the things I'm hoping is that the utility company will take advantage of, Eversource will take advantage of this mechanized capability. So if we look at hiring these people, as in the town hiring these people to deal with the other 500 trees that are on the opposite side of the utilities, it'd be a very efficient way to clean up these major roads. So they're under contract with the state. I got a call from them last week that they're a little slow right now. So if we wanted to, this would be a good time to put them to work. But just for your consideration, to address the trees that are opposite the poles. The cost estimates for the 500 trees, the average cost per tree is $450. Take down and clean up, no traffic control, and that would amount to $225,000. But they can do this work at about 4 times the speed, maybe 5 times the speed of our regular tree crews. These are preliminary numbers. According to their person, oak and ash death will likely continue for the next 5 to 7 years. So, for the finance commission here, Board of Finance rather, consideration is whether we want to move forward to address this now or in the next fiscal year. The costs are going to be coming to us one way or another, and I don't know if it's something you would want to consider immediately. Finish off this fiscal year. I know it's a big nut to crack, and it can be any percentage of that. We don't have to do all of those roads, but that was done for those. That cost was for those roads. They have a 100,000. You get a reduction. I will also tell you that we would probably use their chip truck. They have big trailer trucks where the chips are blown into it, and they can deliver them, and we would have probably a couple spots where they could be delivered. The beauty of that is that they can unload that truck, which is a 40-footer, which has 60 cubic yards in it. Maybe it's 100 cubic. Anyway, it's a lot of chips. They can unload it in 3 minutes and get back to the site and continue the work. And talking to the road superintendent, Ms. Lunt, it would seem as a very practical rather than putting it in our little dump trucks and hauling it. There might be a cost savings by using our own trucks, but not if you figure the truck costs and the labor of not having the crew available to work on other projects. Since we still have stuff that needs to be cleaned up from the floods from 14 months ago. So, again, for your consideration.
Okay, I'm gonna start by, there's some stuff that I want to talk about on this topic.
Yep.
I'm gonna give the board a chance to kind of go through and ask any questions they might have first, and then I'll go through it. And so I'll start by just saying there's a lot of unanswered questions that I have right now. I'll begin with the percentage of the budget expended so far this year. We don't have a current number, and I'm sure if Cindy were here, she could give us the data,
Yes.
but I don't know what percentage of the budget she.
So of the 150,000, I believe last numbers, which is now a couple weeks old, was, I believe 90,000 was still available.
And with that 60 that we spent, what's the report? What happened?
We only had the one crew working part-time, and there's several different ways they were going about it. Sometimes our own crew was moving the wood, sometimes they were just leaving the bowls. So if you drive down some of the roads, you'll see the trunk of the tree is there, but it's all been limbed off, so for us to deal with later on. Again, they were only here 2 to 3 days a week. With the additional crew in, we're going to be eating it up obviously much faster at 4,000, or we'll just say 4,000 a day if they're both crews are working. That's an 8-hour day. So.
All right, so let me just do a little math on this.
I get a little information on while you're doing that. I'm liaison to transfer station, the tree cutting, the roads, all that stuff. So I met with Beth back in December the 12th, and on December the 12th, she had 77,000 left.
Okay, so like I
In the
said,
account.
my numbers are probably out of date, so.
So it's probably less than that now, probably like 60 now.
Yeah.
All right, so if I took 60,000 and I divide it by 4, so how many trees did they get a day when they do this?
It depends on the size of the tree. So if you want to look at it that way, they figure $1,000 a tree. So that's the other way to figure it. So,
So we get another 60 trees?
Yeah.
Based on this preliminary?
Yeah.
So we knocked out 150 trees. I guess my second part of this is, there's a lot of approaches. Yours is the clear-cut method, which if we always observed that from way back when we started building and said, okay, you have to keep it clear 30 or 50 feet back, we would have never had this problem. But
well, it's not really a clear cut, man. It's only removing dead trees and ashes. All ashes are gonna die, there's no question about that. So the trees that would be removed on the roadsides and adjacent to the roadsides of private owners, because a lot of trees are on the roadside but on private property, but they lean way out over the road because that's where the daylight was. And if they're dead, we would probably move them because they're also a hazard, obviously, because they're not gonna fall back into the property if they're leaning way out over the road. So, so it's not a clear cut. You know, I don't wanna let anybody think that, but it's gonna change the appearance of our road signs.
Here's what the issue is. We've been asking for 3 years an assessment of the number of trees. And each year, we get a number, and we base our math on the number we get. The first year, we were told that there's, I don't know, something on the order of 1,500 trees. Was that the number?
That was a number.
So
That was
we
in
got
writing,
told-
by the way, in the report, it had 1,500.
So we have 1,500 trees. So we allocated resources to cut down 1,500 potential trees. We were told also that no one can go out and I didn't agree with this, but no one can go out and identify these trees because that would be a violation of our insurance coverage. And in my view, assessing the problem is not a violation of insurance coverage, that's good risk management. But whatever, we got a number that was a ballpark and we said, okay, based on this, we could solve our problem in X number of years. And that's how we allocated the funds. Now we're seeing that this number is now, I agree that there's a lot of dead trees. I've seen them and I've been looking at them. But the number is so much dramatically greater than the number that you're just talking about. Those few roads with 800, those are only 4 roads of how many do we have to service? So what is the potential that we're really dealing with here? And are we approaching it correctly, given that should we be responsible to do all the trees that are dying, or do we just do them as we can go along? And that's really where I'm worried, because the amount of money that you're talking about there, way, way, way outside of our budget. Do it now or do it whenever. How do we do it in an appropriate manner?
So, Todd, may I ask a question? Did Beth give you a figure? Because she mentioned a figure to me that she will probably be discussing in her budget requests.
No, they're working on it. She didn't give me a figure, hard figure.
I will
she
tell you
said
that
she's
she
working
mentioned
on
a
it.
value over $1 million.
Yeah,
but-
I heard numbers that were approaching more like $2 million,
And the-
which knocked me off my chair.
I can look. She said the problem is definitely growing because they're finding more and more dead trees. And I'll give you a little personal story about how this can mushroom. I live on a country road, Bogle Road, and about 4 or 5 weeks ago, we had a big windstorm, and 26 homes lost power. It was 26 homes on Bogle Road. What happened is that there was a big red oak tree on the east side of Bogle Road, up on a little bit of a hill, a rise, at the south end of my property, and it's dead. And in the wind, the overhanging long branch, I'm talking a big guy, broke and fell off, and it came down across the road, blocked the road. It took down the power line, and also took down a tree on my property, a choke cherry. So it really took out 2 trees. So that's what's going on here. So it's not just trees on the edge of the road anymore. Took it like in my place, where you got big trees, it's deeper in the woods, and they're like sleeper cells. They're there, you don't know they're there until they fall down. So and we lost power. We went out of power at 2 o'clock in the morning, didn't get power back till 1 o'clock that afternoon.
And I'm not disputing the tree issue. I said, I see all these dead trees. I now see dead trees, I
So
feel
the
like.
issue, to Bill's point though, I'll say one more thing. It's speed. And when Beth and I talked about this, we gotta cut down the trees as fast as possible. And we can find somebody who can do it quickly, however which way that is, that's the most effective use of our dollars. Because,
Perhaps, and this is where I have, and I'm speaking independently, but I'm gonna open it up for other comment. What I'm worried about is we're going to the guy that sells tree cutting and asking him how many trees we should cut down. Of course he's gonna tell us we've gotta do 800 trees because he gets a better contract. I think we need a more independent approach at trying to solve this problem. I'm not comfortable that what we've been presented is a reasonable course of action. I keep asking about it, but I haven't seen anything that makes me confident we're solving our problem, and I feel like this is one area where we're spending money of our taxpayer dollars without a true understanding of what we're gonna get for it. And I'm not comfortable writing any more checks until I know a course of action. So can we hire, are there people from the state perhaps that are experts in this field that work for I remember when Emmett presented this to me, he showed me a article from a state arborist who said, here's how the approach should go. He identified, in this article, you should have volunteers for your town, go out and identify trees, and identify the worst ones first. Things like that nature. There were ideas that were put in there to help solve the problem. There are courses of action, and I agree, this machine would be great, but I don't know that we can afford the amount of money that's being allocated for this expense, and nor can we afford it all at once.
Yeah, so I agree. Whenever you ask a vendor to do something that is going to benefit him without putting a control on it, shall we say, you're asking for potentially inflated costs. I think the more important part of it is rather than $1,000 a tree, they can work at $450 per tree. But
right.
there's a couple ways I think we can look at it. We have a tree warden. We have an assistant tree warden. I know they are marking the trees now that need to be removed. Before they were just letting the tree crews take down the ones that they thought were, and I said, you need to mark the trees. They should be marked. And part of the problem is now because of the insurance that we're only marking them a couple days in advance so that someone can't come along and say, oh, whatever. But, you know.
And by the way, has anybody spoken with Kerma and said, what are you recommending we do? Because they're the ones that own this liability ultimately.
So, absolutely, and in all honesty, it's been on my list. I haven't been able to get there to do that yet because it's very important. And I was concerned about it as a selectman. I'm concerned about it now, and probably I should have addressed it sooner. But be that as it may, because I've been assured by several people that this is absolutely what they've been saying. So, but that may have changed too because the whole situation has changed. You know, the lieutenant governor was here last week, and I said the biggest issue for this town and almost all the towns in this area are the dead tree issue. And you know, they say they're working on several different options to try and address it, but that doesn't solve our problem more immediately. But just as a quick aside, you said you lost 26 houses lost power. We had 335 houses without power yesterday morning. Because what day is this?
Today's Monday, the 13th. Because the trees.
We had some wind over the weekend.
Yesterday.
The wind was over the weekend, yeah.
Yes. So yesterday morning there was 335 houses without power in town, and that really wasn't that windy. And so.
But again, I get back to all the alternatives. Do you go down and you cut down some of the branches so there's just a trunk laying there, and we'll go back to that later?
Well, that's one of the things that they were doing. But again, that comes back to then our crew is tied up, probably going to be the ones.
I'm just looking for I want to see a plan.
Right.
And that's really what I'm missing.
Yeah,
So I'm going to now open
I
up to the
understand
board.
perfectly.
Do you want to elaborate and go, any comments or thoughts? I said my piece.
We're kind of in a tough spot here. Mm-hmm. And part of the problem has been, in my estimation, is that there was no real plan. It was just a bunch of ad hoc actions. We'll try this, we'll try that, we'll do this, we'll do that. Before we get to the point where we have to make some real budget decisions for the next fiscal year, I think we'd be well served if we had a plan that identified what the strategy is, how are we gonna attack this problem, right? Sort of step by step by step by step. Who's gonna do it? How are they gonna do it? And what's it gonna cost? For the whole nut. And for the whole town, all however many roads. And then we'll have to figure out somehow how much we can accomplish next year, the next fiscal year. Right? Whether we can do 10% of it or 90% of it or whatever. Right? Because we're just operating in the dark. Basically throwing stuff in. We're standing on the mountain blindfolded, hoping we can throw a strike, and that ain't gonna work.
Yeah, that's right.
And that shifting, my suggestion, obviously, shifts a ton of work to your office, and to the extent that they'd be useful public works. And I guess well, let me ask a question instead of sermonizing. Is the existing tree warden and assistant tree warden capable of inventorying sort of the approximate magnitude of the problem? I mean, there's always going to be something you miss, but, or do we need, as Bill says?
So my thinking is that since the assistant tree warden is the road superintendent and is already extremely busy.
Yeah.
Public Works director is a tree warden. I'm going to rephrase it. I think it would be worthwhile to see if we could have a contractor or subcontractor go out and evaluate it who is not affiliated with the tree crews.
Some arborists.
Before you continue your line of thought, may I throw out I just want to add a little seed of thought. When we were looking at the problem with police protection in the schools, a subcommittee was formed through the Board of Education, and a lot of people from different perspectives were able to communicate in that committee, and as a result, we ended up with the school resource officer, which, having been a member of that committee, was a compromise from what they were intending to do, and it saved the town a lot of money, and I think solved our problem. Would you consider, as the selectmen, maybe forming a subcommittee of people that are in the know, to include all those you mentioned, maybe somebody from the finance board, and maybe somebody from Eversource, maybe somebody from outside, where all of this group can get together and haggle out a couple of courses of action, giving you better information so that you can solve your problem. Because what it sounds like to me is, and I'm very empathetic about this, you just got hired for a new job, and you didn't realize the amount of work. We don't pay you enough. That's the way I look at it. We talked about this for years. There's a lot of hours going on in this job, and there's not enough time, and maybe delegating it out. We found in our subcommittees, we got a lot of mileage done by just breaking off and doing things separately and reporting back.
I agree, a subcommittee would probably be helpful, and, I can put something together pretty quickly if I can get a couple volunteers, and, the staff I can pull in at any time, but, if someone from the committee to join us would be helpful. They're definitely helpful. Eversource, the local arborist actually grew up in town here. Used to be a clink, Jenna Turner, and I think is sympathetic to the issues because they're dealing with the same issues from a different perspective, of course. Same roads, but the wires are their primary concern. Pun intended, by the way. But I think I also have more information at the meeting next week. And maybe it'd be good if I could have some member of the board here attend that meeting too, because it might be helpful.
You're talking about the meeting with Eversource?
24th, right, so see where they're coming from too. But I think we can put something together, because I think actually the concern that you raised was the concern I had, and actually Steve Heather went with the guy, Jason Yerk from Distinctive Tree Care. And he said that he had 800 trees, but some of those trees weren't ours and whatever, so there's an issue that has to be addressed there. But it was a quick afternoon taking a look at what's going on, and Steve drove and he was counting trees, so. He's also an arborist and everything, but he does work for a company, so. And I don't know what other resources are out there. I mean, interestingly, the gentleman you spoke about, Tom Worthley, and that Emmett was using for his information, is giving a talk on trees on Friday for the land trust at the on the dead tree issue for the land trust at the senior center at 7 o'clock. If anyone wants to attend, so. Yes, I think we can put something together, and at this point, they're pushing to get something work done, but we don't have to obviously move at their speed that they would like to have the crews working.
And by no means am I inferring that I'm not in favor of us trying to find a resolution. I just want to have,
I think
as
everyone
Harvey, I
understands.
think you illustrated really well. I just want to see a plan of action. Joe, do you have any thoughts or comments you want to share?
No, I mean, I think I share the same concerns that you guys have expressed. My only concern is I know it's not just money, but I'm sorry, because I know I'm the one coming in late to the party that you've had this discussion a lot, but we're going to be competing for resources to take these down. I'm curious, Rob, what you hear from other towns. I know everybody going through the same issues. Are you hearing, is everybody doing like a hard scramble right now, trying to address the budgetary issue here as well as?
It's funny, I mean, some of the tree issues are very localized.
Okay.
And some towns don't have anywhere near the miles of roads that we have. Lyme has quite a few tree issues, but they don't have the number of roads. So they have one or two crews working, from what I understand. Other towns where they have a lot of stuff have already used Distinctive, because they can do a lot more and more quickly. That was an issue early on, where there was a lot of folks out there that were doing tree cutting, and there was a lack of crews. I think the void has been filled because other companies have started, and there's more trucks, and they bought more trucks. Some places just didn't even have the trucks available to do all the work that was being required. So the number of people available to do the job has increased, because it's just an unusual situation. And I just hope, I sincerely hope, that some of the stuff that's further to the west of us doesn't get here, because this will be a decade-long problem if it does, or 2-decade-long problem.
When you say stuff to different insects. But the bottom line is, we're going to have to embrace tree removal in a different way than we've ever considered before.
Yes, absolutely.
We have to deal with the situation we have at hand and the potential of stuff that could happen in the future. So we definitely have to get our arms around this as not just a 1 or 2 year problem. It's going to be a long-term issue we have to face. All right, good. Did you have anything else, John?
No, thank you.
Bruce, how about you?
I think it's all been pretty much said.
Okay.
I have a few more things to say. Speed, to me, I know, I try to moderate myself, but I have a difficult time.
But it hasn't worked
Take
yet.
yourself.
It hasn't worked yet, does it?
This is this problem I love to get my teeth into. I see two strong parameters or variables: speed and performance. We've got to do things as quickly as possible. We've got to make sure we're not wasting our money. I was a little disturbed last year, this current year, in fact. We're paying people to cut trees down, but we're not counting the trees being cut down. We don't know our performances. Are we getting the biggest bang for our buck? Now, we were expending $9,000 a month, and we thought it was because we allocated $13,500 a month, and we knew we had to get speed. So $9,000 a month sounded pretty slow to me. So we enticed them to speed up, and they did, but I still don't know how many trees we got cut more by spending more money. So now with Rob's approach, we should see some performance and accountability. The other thing I'm concerned about, let's face it, folks, we can't cut these trees down all at once. It's just financially and physically impossible. So we're gonna have to prioritize, prioritize which trees need to be cut, which ones are a danger to the roads, or to a school bus stop, or to power lines. And we've got people with good eyes, foresters or tree wardens, that can pick those trees out. And we should go quickly and cut those as quickly as we can. The other ones that are gonna take longer to fall down. What causes the danger, I think, I'm not a forester, but I've been going around trees long enough. What causes the danger is not so much the trunk, it's the branches. Like what happened to us 4 weeks ago. It was a branch that did that, a big branch, albeit. So we have to maybe come up with a different way to cut trees to minimize. Our job is to minimize, to take the danger out, right? However which way we can, and do it, to your point, at minimum cost. And the other thing that people are forgetting, and they should help, is the private property owners. Myself, on my road, I've spent more than several $1,000s in this past year cutting trees. In fact, I hired a tree cutter to cut 4 more trees for me this month, and 3 ash and 1 chokecherry. And I see now there's more trees there that I'm watching that may have to come back a month later and cut more trees. Now these trees, frankly, are on the town road side of my stone wall. Some of them, some are on the field side. But I took the step to cut the trees anyway, because I don't want these trees falling on people's cars or people getting hurt, because there's a lot of traffic on my road.
These are by your east field,
Yes.
the west field, rather?
The south lot and the west lot. I did the west lot, but there's a couple more trees on the west lot need to be cut, but there's some huge ash on my south lot, on the east side of the road that had to be cut. And
I was taking note of those.
I'm sure you were. I was concerned about the wind over the weekend, that those dead branches are gonna, and what they do, they snap off and they explode. They're not like a live branch. They come down like a artillery shell, because there's no small branches to slow them down, I guess. Anyway, we have to inform the property owners of their responsibilities. Or do we expect to cut trees for them as well? Like on my road, I got $10,000 worth of trees for you to cut down. So we have to somehow make the property owners aware of their responsibility here.
There is a conversation on that we
Am I too
really should
pushy?
entertain.
Yes, absolutely. Because it's a danger. My trees definitely will take down a power line, not a problem at all. So they have to be aware at some point so they can start cutting themselves. If they see us, they see the town cutting in a deliberate, planned manner, expending lots of money, maybe that will entice them to go spend a little money themselves. It's a tough issue, I know, but whether the tree is on private property or public property, but it falls down a public road and hurts people or takes out power lines, that's the consequence. So we got to make sure that people are aware of that, not surprised by it. And above all, I agree 100%. We need a plan. We needed a plan since day one. We never got that until now. We're working on it now. So those are my points. So we may have to spend $20,000 a month for the next 2 years, for example,
Or more.
or more.
And before we spend that kind of money, that's why I think getting an educated plan is really the course of action. And given what we've heard so far, I don't know that, and this is not by any means to discredit any of those involved, but I don't know if anyone has the capability to develop that plan right yet, knowing all the facts and all that going on. So it's a whole new concept, so a lot of people are being put into the middle of it. There's lots of changing variables. I just think we need something a little more concrete.
And one thing you mentioned there's a lot of changing variables too. And I haven't even really touched on things like trees, dead trees in some of our cemeteries, which if they fall, then you're destroying gravestones.
Like Ackley Cemetery.
Ackley Cemetery
25
is totally
trees.
surrounded by
Yeah.
dead trees.
Big ones.
Big oaks. I mean, Though most of them could be taken down without, with equipment, but, yes, these are all issues, and, there's some people that will insist on not having their ash cut because it's still alive. And it is for a year, but I lost 5 ashes, big ashes, 2-footers at least, maybe 3-footers in my yard this year, just, that's how fast they go, so. Fortunately, not near my house.
Okay, so I think we covered
Yep.
trees
Yep.
so you know the concern.
Yep.
Do you have anything else you want to brief us on?
That's all I had, and I just wanted to make you aware of all this, I know we had touched on it briefly before, and, I wanted to bring it before the board here so that they're aware of some ideas of what costs we're looking at and the impact to our budget, so.
We appreciate that. Okay, that covers our first selectmen's report, finance director. Cindy is away right now, so she didn't prepare a report for us right now. She'll have it in next month's meeting. Are there any liaison reports, Army?
Yeah, the Board of Ed, through the superintendent's office, seems quite interested in getting things coordinated, so Bill, I guess, is the other Board of Ed.
We're both on that
And
liaison, and we had a meeting on the Thursday of this week, Thursday the 16th.
The
I
16th.
cannot attend on the 24th, but hopefully they'll brief us in the middle. Good. Joe?
Nothing to report, just made contact with everybody, but, moving the ball slowly here.
Super. Great, thanks. Bruce?
I've been in contact with at least half of the new assignment that I have, and none of them have shared anything that they had of concern.
Okay, super. Thank you very much. Just sort of saying in the boat, I'll move over to you.
Okay. I had my first meeting with Beth Lunt back on December the 12th, and just introductory, just to get started. And we talked about trees, of course, we talked about the roads, and we talked about a few other things. Hemlock Valley Road, you probably know this already, Rob. Hemlock Valley, Neptune, and Bonfoy are the 3 roads that need major work. They're going out to bid, the jobs are going to bid this winter, and hope to start work next summer. And so that's a big issue for lots of folks, because those roads are blocked off in sections, as you all know. And the trees, we talked about trees already, I won't go over it anymore. But one thing she mentioned, they have so much wood now, they're thinking they want to get an outdoor wood furnace to heat the town facility, which is a $30,000, estimated $30,000 expenditure, plus a heat exchanger, and that's some extra money. That would save the cost of heating the facility with oil.
Significant
Yeah,
savings.
15 to 17K savings per year, something like that. Yeah, it's now costing 15 to 17K to heat. If you heat it with wood, it'll be 0, or almost 0. So there's a lot, the public works, lots of activity in the public works. And thank you, that's it.
Okay. Done with liaison reports, old business. I have nothing on that list right now. Is there anything on old business I overlooked? Okay, we did new business earlier on. Time to move to guest and audience comments. Thank you very much. Anything else that I may have overlooked for this meeting?
Yes, I'd like to report, didn't do it last month because we already had a long meeting, it was like 9:30 at night. But I attended along with other folks, Bill and Cindy, the CCM conference at the Foxwoods. And it was very educational, it always is. But I thought, and I went to 3 sessions, and you can guess one of the sessions was communications. The other was the economic outlook, which is kind of not good for Connecticut. This is coming from non-biased people. Connecticut, we expect economic slowdown either in late 2020 or into 2021. And as we all know, Connecticut is like lagging the rest of the country and recovering from the recession. But the communications session was most interesting. We're doing the right thing. They talked about the the social media, electronic media. And what it is, there's so much new stuff coming on every day. It continuing to evolve. But it's not a very good communicator. It requires lots of management, lots of misinformation. And a lot of us there were not too excited about it. But one thing was said by one of the individuals who was a pretty sharp guy. There's nothing better, this is almost a quote, I couldn't write fast enough. There's nothing better than having a small newspaper covering your town. That beats everything else. It beats the Hartford Current, it beats social media, it beats everything else. I just want to say how lucky we are to have the East Haddam News. And we need more of the truth, whether it's social media or printed media, we need more of the truth, less gossip. So I thought you guys would appreciate that. I did, for sure.
We appreciate your attendance there, and
It was great, everybody should come,
Active.
it's really well worth the time.
it was a good day, I agree. Good, okay, that was under other.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Thank you, Deb.
You're pretty darn quick. For a little guy, you're quick.
Timing.
That's right.
This is true.
Smoke him if you got him.
Get to the car first.